Ladies and gentlemen, let me give you a little dose of reality.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Real Talk Fins Talk. I'm your host, Steve Malloy, and we've got a great show tonight. We have someone that's been MIA for a while, but somehow or another, I found him, and I invited him back to the show, and that's Rob Mosley, aka DolphinsThirsty. How you doing, Rob? Welcome back, man.
Well, thank you. Glad to be back with you and Evan. It's always a thrill. I see Jeff back it up in the bin podcast. It's already in the house, so
Yeah,
it's always good to be back.
all right, great to have you back, Rob. I'm glad you accepted to come on tonight and talk about a little bit about the Miami Dolphins. And we have Evan Posner from the Fins Talk Sports Network joining us tonight. Evan, how you doing, man?
Well, you said that Rob was missing in action, just like the Miami Dolphins, MIA. It works out pretty well, eh? Welcome back,
right.
Rob. You were like the Miami Dolphins this season, missing in action. Welcome back.
Yep.
I couldn't go 48 hours after that wonderful post-game show that we had talking about the direct that is our football team. But I'm telling you, you know what's interesting though? At least it will lead to a more exciting offseason. The offseason's already started.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
It is here. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And then and Danny Crossman still has a job as of right now. So
for now, for now, we'll have lots to talk about, I'm sure. But anything Dolphins, I'm all good.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, before we do get started, I just want to say, we were all Dolphin fans here, and we may not agree everything Miami Dolphins, but there is one thing we do agree on is we are all Dolphin fans. So I appreciate everybody for joining in the chat tonight. I see the backup Bench podcast is in here. JB, we got DCG Label is in the house. Appreciate you for joining.
That's my boy.
Yeah. And so everybody that's in here, I appreciate it. Just make sure you hit that like button so we can send out those notifications. And also make sure if you're new to the channel or you haven't hit that subscribe bell down there yet, please do that. And then share with your friends, your families, and your neighbors. All right. So we're going to get on with the show. Like I said, we've got a good show tonight. We've got a lot to talk about. And, as we know, they had the end of the year media press conference with Chris Grier, Mike McDaniel, talking about the team, about the season and where they're going, how they're going to go forward with the season. I call them the Three Stooges, and the Three Stooges are Chris Grier, Mike McDaniel, and Tua Tagovailoa, and we'll get to him, of course, sometime during the show as well tonight. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to start off with let's talk a little bit about the Jets game, and I'm going to get your take on it first, Rob, on the Jets game. How did you see the Jets game playing out? How did you feel about it?
it looked like the Jets were the team playing with a little bit of like they had the playoff spot on the line, and we were the team just playing out the string, especially once that I think they saw that Denver score just keep on going up. I mean, I know I'm not there in their mindset, but I was saying it during the game, and then come to find out maybe that's one of the reasons Tyreek took himself out because they saw that I think they went downhill from there. They saw Denver was taking care of business easily against the B squad of Kansas City. And I'm not making that as an excuse because they've never been in that position when we had to win the last week to get in and need help on top of that. That's all on the Dolphins. And it was an ugly game, man. Once I knew we were out, I didn't even care about the win. So at least that was good. Once I was like, if we lose, at least we move up a little bit more in draft position. Even though we're keeping the same venerable, legendary Chris Grier at the helm to make the picks, we still at least, maybe there's a little less chance of messing up 13 than like 18 or whatever it could have gone down to. So, but that game, it was not very good. Huntley was terrible, awful. I mean, as good as he helped us look against Cleveland the prior week, he was just the complete opposite. And then at the end, when he made the excuse, I'm like, oh my God, this is not what we need to hear. He said it was wet and slick and cold. I'm like, this has been the problem for the Dolphins for, a quarter of a century. Find a big damn quarterback that can play in any kind of weather with the wind blowing in his face, snow coming down. Don't give me, the ball's wet and slick. Aaron Rodgers was playing with a wet and slick ball too. I mean, it's just, to me, that was just like, I couldn't believe he said that. I'm like, come on, don't you know that's what's been against the Dolphins all these years? They can't get it done in the cold, and you're going to come up, it's cold and slick. So, and he did also say the Jets prepared well for them, that the Jets, had, a good game plan against them.
Yeah, and I have a tendency to agree with you. And I think one of the reasons why Tyreek did take himself out of the football game was because they had the live screen up there in New York, and they saw what the score was, and they made business decisions. And I don't think it was just Tyreek. I think the whole team kind of just went along to play, go along, and they were just waiting for this game to be over. They were playing with no energy, no urgency. They were just like, hey, we're not going anywhere, and they made business decisions. Evan, your take. How did you feel about the game?
I take that football game. Let's see. We got the ball. We got the ball twice in the red zone. The defense did their job, and this offense got the ball on the 3-yard line after an interception, and we lost yardage. Every time we ran the ball, our running, except for Devon Achane, who had the chunk yard play of 20-something yards and 61 yards. Jalen Wright had 5 carries or 6 carries for -4 yards. Raheem Mostert got minus yards. Jeff Wilson got minus yards. The whole point of the game for me was that the defense did everything they could to give the Dolphins a chance to win the football game in the first quarter. And the Dolphins came away with 6 points and kept the Jets in the football game. And then in the second half, when the Jets started trolling the Dolphins by putting the live score up there, I guarantee you, if it wasn't the Jets, they probably wouldn't have done that. Or probably the fact if it would have been a random team in the AFC, NFC West, it wouldn't have mattered to them because they're not a rival. But all I saw was an itsy bitsy waste of my time. Social worker, as like you like to call him, on the sideline, looking lost. Can't challenge for his life, making things up as he goes. I felt bad for the team. I just felt bad. Like Armstead, he let things go because you wonder why he thought Huntley would be able to get rid of the ball. Like people were giving up, and I still saw Zach Sealer trying. I still saw Calais Campbell trying. I saw our head coach crying on the sideline, and I'm not talking about Mike McDaniel. I'm talking about Anthony Weaver crying on the sideline with Calais Campbell. Those are true warriors. But no, the thing that bothered me the most was not just Mike McDaniel. It was Tyreek taking himself out of the game. I believe that was his own decision because he gave up, because he's a diva, he's a wide receiver, but that's what you get when you get Tyreek Hill. My number one issue was Mr. Arrogant himself with his pathetic female Fendi sunglasses with a grin on his face, freezing his butt off, looking like this the whole game. What was that? When we're winning, you're up there, tapping his hand, but when things aren't going great, you're sitting on the sideline, you buffoon. You're the reason why you're in that position. You're the reason why you're diving. That's you. I said this to everybody. The biggest bonehead on this team, and everyone knows on this network what I think about Mike McDaniel. Everyone knows where I come around on Chris Grier. The number one person I have a bone of contention with, even more than Tyreek Hill, is the guy I've supported since the day he was drafted, and that's Tua Tagovailoa. I said the day we lost the Bills game, 35-10, that was Tua's fault. The fact that we lost every game that we lost, I don't blame that on Tim Boyle. I don't blame that on Tyler Huntley. I don't even blame on Mike McDaniel. You steal all the reps, then you put yourself in harm's way. Then you finally come back and you face the Texans, and what do? You literally dive forward. So for me, the Jets game, that performance is a culmination of our quarterback's utter buffoonery. And who supported the buffoonery? His head coach. So in the end, they made their bed. They have to lie in it. That's what I saw. I wanted them to lose. I said that on Thursday. I'll never choose. I don't want them to lose. I want my team to win, but I predicted they would lose on the pregame show. I said on Thursday, I'd rather them lose and come to Black Monday where I might see a change than them go into Buffalo where they're getting a major snowstorm and for them to get their butts whipped with an 80% Tua.
Oh yeah, no, for sure that would have happened. I mean, we did get spared seeing our Dolphins get. Maybe the Broncos give them a little because they're used to playing the code, so maybe they play to get them a little better battle than what we would give them for sure. So I do see that. So well said.
Yeah.
No, he is the poster child for when you want to teach your child what not to do. It's like we all have kids. Look both ways before you cross the street, and the kid runs across the street.
Yeah, of course.
You give him one warning. This guy literally sick. It's his worst. He's the least amount of games he's even played. Even in his first year, where Flores hated his guts and he put him in against the Rams, he played more games. He's played more games in his first season than he did in his fifth.
Yeah. No, it's bad, but that's the problem, though. Not only is he his own worst enemy, is we got a quarterback that we got to worry about getting hit if wind blows the wrong way, and that that's the big thing, and that's the scary thing. And then he gave that heartfelt speech like, "Oh, I let the team down in the Buffalo game when I dove in, and I felt." Then a couple weeks later, he dives for it. Same exact thing. Just put on replay, and he dives for it. But we shouldn't have a quarterback, Steve. And then I'll let you get to your things. You're being a gracious host. Thank you, Steve. Let me ramble on, but
you're good.
He just you can't have that. The Bills aren't worried about every time someone touches Josh Allen, like, oh my God, oh no, slide. Every time we're just all holding our breath, like, slide, get down, get out of that. You can't live through a season like that. If you're so worried about your quarterback getting banged up, you got an issue at quarterback. And I know a lot of people love Tua. I have nothing against the man, the person, but just he's not our franchise quarterback, and you can't. Don Shula used to say the best ability is availability, and he's just not available. And one season, he's played a full season in his whole career in the Dolphins organization. So to me, it's just you can't count on that,
Before we pass back to Steve, you have to understand this. Remember, a year ago, 6 months ago, king of the bandwagon. And what was happening most of the season? Steve Malloy was texting me how things were everything was all roses, and I was trolling him back saying everything sucks. So things flip very quickly in Miami Dolphins land, right? No, for me, in the end, the game was proof that the team needs a complete and utter makeover. And actually, the one positive I took out of the game, and then Steve, you'll go, I'll take it back to you, is the fact that the majority of this team is not under contract next year. Yes, they have cap issues, which they'll figure out because every team does. But that's what I like. The fact that they don't have to come back with the majority of this team, we could say goodbye to 26 or 27. If we want to get rid of players right now, we can get rid of 28 players. I want a few to come back, but we can get rid of 28 players and not have to cut them. They're gone. We can get rid of them tomorrow.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I don't know if you've been watching. I know there was a list of some players that we've brought back on this year. Did you see the list?
Well, like Jason Mitri and that group.
Oh yeah,
it was a lot of the same folks that we had last year. They brought most of those guys back. So we're gonna, and there's some guys on there that I thought, we shouldn't have done away with, and maybe they can be a help this year. We'll see, or at least we can develop them. They're young players, and that's what we need. We need an uplift of this Miami Dolphins football team. We went from the youngest team in the NFL to the oldest team in the NFL in 1 year. What do you expect, when it comes to injuries and towards the end of the season, when these older guys, let's face it, Father Time is going to catch up with you, and injuries are going to present themselves. You're just not going to be 100%, going into the end of the season, December and January. And I think a lot is of that happened to our Dolphins football team towards the end of the season there was because of that, because of the age factor. And so we've got to get younger. We've got to do better in the draft. We've got to develop players. And I agree with Rob, we just got to do better at developing players, and I agree with you, Evan. We've got to we've got to get rid of these older players and just bring in new talent. And look, I have a feeling, because right after the game, we saw that, and I was very surprised. I was shocked, to be honest with you. Stephen Ross writes a statement that they're bringing back the Three Stooges. They're bringing back Chris Grier. They're bringing back, Mike McDaniel. They're bringing back, well, of course, we knew Tua was probably coming back, but we'll get to him in a second. But I have a feeling both those guys, McDaniel, especially McDaniel and Chris Grier, they're on the hot seat. This is it. This is the last year for them. They've got to get it right. And what I mean by getting it right is, I don't mean just barely making the playoffs. I mean, they've got to get into the playoffs, deep into the playoffs, if they're going to stay on this football team. And number one, I don't think Ross will stand for it. And number two, the fans are not going to stand for it. And you're going to see a lot of fans. And now I'm not one of them. I don't live in South Florida. I know, Rob, you live down in South Florida. But if I was in South Florida, I would be boycotting these games. Not saying I wouldn't watch them or on TV or keep tabs on them, but I wouldn't go to those games. I wouldn't buy season tickets, and that's what I think we have to do as fans is, by yelling and screaming and hollering is not going to do anything. The only way that it's going to hurt Stephen Ross and this organization, and maybe they'll make some changes, is we've got to not get the merchandise. We've got to not be consumers of anything that the Miami Dolphins football team's logo is on, period. I know that's harsh to say, but hey, we expect a good product on the field, and we don't have one. We haven't had one. People want to say, oh, well, we made the playoffs and 2 out of 3 years. We haven't done that in 25 years. Yay. Okay. Is that what our standard is? Is that what our standard is? We've been battered, or, we're like battered Fins fans, right? We've been punched in the face so much, we have Stockholm syndrome, and that's all I can say. And we've got to get out of that and wake up and start, yes, making our voices heard, but two, we've got to get them where it really counts, and that's the monies.
Oh, yeah. So Greg Maney, who's with me on Finstock Overtime, he's been a season ticket holder for a couple of years since he's been living in Orlando. He had a deadline of end of November to renew his season tickets. He said no, but they followed up with him. Usually, if you say no, they'll go to the next person on the waiting list. I guess the waiting list for those tickets aren't so high in the club section because they're chasing him. They're asking him to reconsider. So, yeah, you have to stop buying their merch. You have to do all that. But in the end, honestly, though, for me, where I stood. If I had a choice, there's 4 types of Dolphin fans right now. There are people who want McDaniel gone. There are people who want Grier gone. There are people who want both gone, or they want all 4 gone. And then they also want Tua gone. There's so many different elements because we're all so frustrated. The thing was that I even said, no matter what I thought about, we know Tua's coming back because of his contract for at least 1 more year, no matter what. So that's fine. I would not want Mike McDaniel to come back. If I had a choice, and what I think about McDaniel, I'd fire Grier before I would have fired Grier over McDaniel because of the offensive line and the backup quarterback stuff. But at the same time, you don't want to do the half measure. But my number one concern, because look what they happened today. Brian Callahan is a first year in Tennessee. They have the number 1 pick, and they got rid of Rand Carthon today, who won the battle. Right. He actually won the battle. He actually was Chris Grier. He had the battle with Mike Vrabel, and he won that battle, and Mike Vrabel left. Now you're expecting a guy, GM, to come in and deal with Brian Callahan. I don't know how that's going to work. My fear with Ross, my number 1 fear, because we haven't gotten this we know who we're playing, but we don't have the schedule of when we're playing them. Right. If we get off to a 1-3, 0-4 start, I think he might get trigger happy like Joe Philbin, and he might can them that early, and there goes our season. Because that never works. Every time you try that works in hockey, that will work in baseball where Rob knows that, because you have time to turn it. You have time when you have half a season left and you have 80
Yeah.
games left or 40 games left, or basketball when you make a change with Doc Rivers with the Bucks to turn it around quickly. You can't do that in football. You can't be a quarter into the season and redevelop a brand new system and have them come in. It doesn't work.
That enthusiasm worked for like 1 week. Like when Dan Campbell came into the Dolphins, we looked like, oh my God, we kicked butt. I think it was for like 2 weeks, and then reality hit, and we went down the drain. So, but it's just funny watching, man. Just thinking of all the ex-Dolphins like involved in this. Just seeing Dan Campbell going around, and then other people. It's just so frustrating, man.
Oh, and Ben, isn't it funny when you look around the NFL and how many coaches used to be on the Miami Dolphins staff?
Yeah, I know. So
you have Ben Johnson, you have Brian Flores, you have Dan Campbell. You can keep going. You can just
Todd Boyle, Zach Taylor.
Yeah,
I know. So
there's a lot of them.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
But all I can say is the only thing I must say to the AFC is that they must be so excited that Joe Burrow's not in the playoffs. That's all I said to myself. They are so happy the Bengals are not in the playoffs. Talking about an offense.
For sure.
If they had one sniff of a good defense, if they had the Miami Dolphins defense.
Oh yeah, no, they would be the front runners.
Can we just talk about this for a sec?
They fired their
Sure,
DC.
go ahead.
Can you talk about how our defense on paper was worse than last year? What he did with that crap of a defense. When you look at that defense outside of Jalen Ramsey, Chop Robinson, Jordan Brooks, we had 5 decent players on defense, and he led them to a top 5 ranked defense in the NFL. That's insane. Think about that. How interesting is that we've had a top 10 defense, a top 5 defense, and our offense can't do shit.
Let me give you a dose of reality.
Yeah.
Let me just give you a little dose of reality. We had the easiest schedule in the NFL this year.
I know it averaged out.
So can we really evaluate this defense under those conditions?
No.
Now they did play pretty good against some of the good teams that we played, right? But it's really not fair, in my opinion, can we really give a fair eval of this defense?
But you play who
having
you
the
play,
easiest
right?
schedule in football.
You play
know
who
what
you
I mean?
play. Yeah, but at the beginning of the year, it wasn't the easiest schedule.
No, you're right. Because at the beginning of the year, I looked at the schedule and I went over each team we were playing, and I didn't see it as an easy schedule at the beginning of the year.
No, we always do. That's why I never get into that schedule. I always tell you, Steve. I know it's fun, but looking at the schedule ahead of the season, there's so many teams. Like a couple of years ago, everyone would have said like the Texans are horrible, and then they bounced back last year and they're in the playoffs. This year, everyone, oh my God, the 49ers, they were in the Super Bowl, and then the 49ers stunk this year, So it's so hard to know who's going to be good. And everyone's like, oh my God, Aaron Rodgers is back with the Jets, even though they end up beating us a lot. But everyone thought they were going to be elite and great, and they stunk. It's just
but I agree with you, Rob. We've talked about this before, and that's the way we both feel. I get it, but the point is, I looked at the schedule and I said, hey, this isn't a pushover schedule as it was when I looked at it.
Yeah.
And I had the Dolphins going 10-7, but there was a caveat to that, and I said, but I wouldn't be a bit surprised if they go 8-9. And what did they do? They went 8.
Well, I want to go hear that. I want to go see you say that, Steve. I would give
I said it several times. I've said it on the 305 Sports podcast. I said it on Ace Per Head, on Faith podcast. It's all out there. But I was
around this team. They were close to where I basically said.
Yeah, I said they'd be 10-7, but then I said I wouldn't be surprised if they go 8-9 because I was looking at the schedule. And then again, I didn't know that Tua was going to get hurt, right? We all were thinking, oh, he made it this, last year, he played all 17 games, and lo and behold, he got hurt again. So,
I mean, C-Double does make a point. It's like the days of shutdown defenses. I guess.
Oh, I never said we did. I'm giving kudos to the defense.
No, he's just saying how many shutdown defenses.
There are. No, the number one because ironically, Rob, easy trivia question for you. Which team was number 1 in defense this year? Do you know who?
No, I don't even know.
Who was our defensive coordinator last year?
Oh, was it Minnesota?
No, Philadelphia. Eagles.
Philadelphia. Yeah, Philadelphia.
Fangio.
Oh, yeah,
So it may
Fangio.
not been Fangio who was the problem. And everyone's ripping Fangio for not playing Cam Smith. Woo. Cam Smith's a bust, don't you think?
No, yeah, no. Yeah,
Oh,
I know.
And by the way, I'll be honest with you, and I want to correct what
big
Sea Devil,
fan.
because Sea Devil's a really positive person, and I appreciate the fact he's positive. I was very positive. In the end, after thinking about it, I am okay with them bringing the two back because I didn't want one. So either you make the wholesale change and you change the philosophy, or next year, with the cap hits, with everything going on, with only Tyreek needing the money next year, Tua you can get out next year, that next year is the make or break year. And if you have to walk away from a quarterback, next year is the much better draft to go get a quarterback than it is this year. The people coming out of the draft in 2026 at a quarterback position, if it doesn't go well next year and Tua doesn't protect himself and the team does not go to the level that we expect, 2026 is the blow up year. It is the blow up year.
Yeah. So, Rob, let me ask you this, Rob. This is directed at the quarterback position. What would you do with the quarterback position moving forward, starting this off season? What would you do?
Well, you definitely need a more reliable backup that can come in and compete. I'm not going to name names. It's too early to who knows going to be available in free agency before teams lock them up from their own, or who's going to be there in the draft, or if you want to do the future. But, you need a backup that can come in right away and play and win you football games, because we did not. Our backup plan was Skylar Thompson. I was like, that's awful when you got a quarterback that yes, he played all of last year, so I don't know if they got cocky. Oh, he played all of last year. Maybe he's going to play all of this year. I don't know, but you have an injury-prone quarterback, and the backup plan was Skylar Thompson. I know it was a budget thing because Mike White was scheduled to make too much money, so they got rid of him and said, let's roll with Skylar and keep Tua healthy. But you can't have that, now. And I think Huntley showed that maybe he could be the third string emergency, but you don't want him to be the primary backup either. So you definitely need to improve that. And you have to have a veteran that's willing to be the backup, because Tua is going to be the starter. So you have to have a guy that's saying, okay, but maybe he in the back of his mind, he's saying, well, Tua might get hurt again and I would have the chance to shine and play again, So, to me, you need a better backup plan than Skylar freaking Thompson, because, his rookie season, he lit up the preseason. Everyone, oh, he's the best. He's better than this. He's already better than Tua and this and that. And then, he played in the playoff game. And then, I was like, oh my, that's when Grier was a little weak during the press conference. He kept on referencing a couple Buffalo games where we almost won. I'm like, I don't care about almost win.
Exactly. I was going to get to the press conference, but go ahead. Go on with your thought. I'm sorry.
Because he said a couple of times, we almost won with Skylar Thompson up there. And then we almost won that night game that was really cold. And then this year they kicked a 60,000-yard field goal, whatever. And it was a long field. But I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to hear about almost. You guys are a professional football team that had high-end salary cap players. You're not supposed to be happy with an almost. Get it done. Bottom line is get it done. And they didn't get it done against the Bills. So to me, you just can't have that. I know your question was quarterback. You need a better backup quarterback. I'm not going to name names. I don't know who's going to be available, what Minnesota is going to do with their situation and all that. You just don't know. So, and you don't know what the budget the Dolphins want to do for a quarterback. But I don't want to count on a rookie, because then it's kind of the same place, because like Evan pointed out, this isn't the greatest quarterback class. I mean, you can take a flyer, but not in the first round, not with pick 13. There's no one at that point. So, take a flyer later. Maybe you get hit the lottery finally. The Dolphins are due a lottery winning ticket finally, So, but basically, not naming names, you just need a better backup quarterback that can win you some games like we had back in the day with Don Strock, Matt Moore for the younger people. At least they could come in and fill in for a few games and you don't feel like you're at a loss. This year, you just knew you're like, oh, we're screwed, and that's what we need to fix.
Yeah, I agree. Michael, thank you for joining. I know I've seen Raphael, my brother's in there. Appreciate you, brother. Haven't seen you for a while. Sea Devil, Greg, DSG label. Appreciate Ollie for joining tonight. Make sure you hit that like button. Also, just want to make mention, I don't talk about this often, but I just want to bring it up. We do have a super chat. So if you want to donate that way through super chat, we definitely wouldn't be shy about accepting a super chat from you all if you're so inclined to do that. But yeah, Rob, I agree with you. We definitely got to do something about the backup quarterback. Isn't it a crying shame that we've got to bring in? We're talking about a backup. We got to bring in a good backup for our number one quarterback, for supposedly our franchise quarterback. We're talking about a backup. Really? I mean, that's a big concern. That's a telltale
No, I know
sign.
that's a
right
concern
there.
in itself. I know that's a concern, but you do
it's
need
crazy,
one.
but
Yeah.
but anyway. Evan, same question. What do you think we should do moving forward with the quarterback situation in Miami?
I always say every year February is the slowest month in football for us because the Super Bowl ending and free agency doesn't start till mid-March. But I'm signing a backup quarterback the first day free agency starts. I want that guy. I want Skylar Thompson cut. I want you to sign a veteran backup quarterback. I don't care if it's Andy Dalton. I don't care if it's Jimmy Garoppolo or the guy who played for San Francisco on Sunday who play in this offense, who knows the offense, and Josh Dobbs. I've always liked him as a veteran who can come in and do the things that can learn. But I want this guy in the offense day one. I want him in the film room day one. Not in April, not in May, not in June. I want them there in March. That's when I want our guy signed. And I want one of those guys. I want a veteran guy who can come in and win you football games, but it has to be someone who understands sort of that scheme. So I'm happy with an Andy Dalton, but ideally I need someone who is either Jimmy, because McDaniel's saying he's going to call plays again. It has to be either a Jimmy G or Josh Dobbs or someone of that ilk who's won football games for a team, has started before, and we'll see what we can go from there. And I just want to make note to everybody who's in the chat, if you were not here at 7:30, Mike McDaniel will be fining you a couple of $100 for showing up late, because that's how he handles his country club, where people could be late for meetings. People could be late. It's okay. No big deal. It's all good. No big deal.
I know. Well, he said that obviously wasn't working, so he's going to change it. But I just don't know. It's kind of hard because you have to set your tone. Because, like, if I had a boss that's nice to me for 10, I've worked in a job over 2 decades. If for 10 years he's all Mr. Nice, and then one day he's Mr. Hard Ass, I'm not going to buy it. But if a guy's hard ass from day one, I'm going to know I have a hard ass from day one. So it's kind of hard to change. Like, all of a sudden you're hard ass.
Not that he's a hard ass, but there is an account. Like, for example, he knew, and this was how you elect, the players elect the captains. The fact that if I was that head coach, I never in my life would have let Tyreek Hill be a captain, ever. What example are you showing to your team that the guy who trolls with Antonio Brown pictures? By the way, there's something in MetLife Stadium. Either people get injured if you're Jalen Phillips. People wide receivers leave football games. It's very, very interesting what happens at MetLife. I'm telling you, New Jersey.
But at least he didn't rip off the shirt. He didn't go that far.
Off the shirt.
Yeah.
No, honestly though, it's
too cold.
But you asked the question, Steve. What does that say about our quarterback? It says that, but it actually says that that you need to have insurance. Number one. Number two, that you can't trust him. So it actually will. If they're saying, which they said in the press conference, where I didn't want to get to it yet, but you will get to it. But if they're going to, they need to sign a backup quarterback, because that's the insurance. That's the team you're building. But for me, more than a backup quarterback, I need the famous line, and he tried to pull it back today in your favorite line, the offensive line. For me, I would have been more concerned. Tua being out, Huntley playing. If Liam Eichenberg, if they didn't have the arrogance, no more even less with the backup quarterback. If Liam Eichenberg and Robert Jones were not your starting guards, and your core would have been a healthy Isaiah Wynn, Aaron Brewer, Rob Hunt, Austin Jackson, and Teron Armstead, our offensive line would have been top 10. The fact that you had those two guys who couldn't even make it, were third stringers the year before, and you made them starters. It's like basically going to get the janitor to be the principal. It doesn't work.
Yeah,
And
no.
that's where so even with the backup quarterback, you could have a bad game and just have the guy hand it off 50 times a game. But you couldn't even do that because your offensive line was a leaky faucet. It was just flowing. Like how many times, Rob, because you haven't been able to come on the shows, and Steve, we talked about it a ton. I guarantee you, if you actually watch most games, most of our second downs were started off at 2nd and 11, 2nd and 12, 2nd and 13, than it did 2nd and 8. I guarantee if you go count,
Yeah,
we either got from first down to first down, but if we got to second down, it was probably with negative yardage. And let me ask you guys, and Rob, it's a little pun for you. What does the guy on that big tall thing? It's called a mound. What does he do? What's he called?
Pitcher.
He's a pitcher. I didn't realize Tyler Huntley was a pitcher because that's what he did on 4th and inches, Mike McDaniel. On 4th, you pitch it back 5 yards.
I know.
Explain that to me, Steve. When you're watching a football game, why is it that when we have the ball and we need 1 yard, we say no, we're going to get 6.
No, we do that so much, and we already have offensive line issues, and we flip the ball behind the line several yards instead of just pound it up there. It makes no sense to me. I know probably every fan of every team because we watch the Dolphins religiously so I'm sure everyone outside of maybe Chiefs fans who have a little respect because they win every damn Super Bowl, but probably most fans, oh my God, my coach sucks. Why are they calling this? But I just don't think teams can run as many screens or pitches than the Miami Dolphins. I would love to break it down to some guy that actually watches and break it down. I can't imagine that a team runs more screens and pitches.
Brett and Greg, who are very analytical, tell you they do it because of Tua. They do it because they figured out the two safety system. Because if you notice when they played the Browns, that pitch thing, they took Achane out and they found ways to get to Tyreek and Jonnu in that group. It's a safety valve for Tua. It's Tua safety valve because actually Huntley has an arm, so they can actually they don't need him to screen as much. Tua doesn't have the arm, so they have to. He relies on the screen. The problem is without Austin Jackson and a healthy Teron Armstead, outside zone doesn't work. And the number, by the way, on top of backup quarterback, backup quarterback for me is third. First for me is guards. Second for me are blocking tight ends. I have never seen a team who misses a block. Like they miss blocks like I've ever seen. Like that guy, Will McDonald. Julian Hill did his job, but it's also the scheme. He doesn't scheme for the tight end to be able to block properly, and we get knocked. We get crushed at the line of scrimmage. It's absolutely that's why, like, for me, you know this, Steve. Like you watch most teams, 1 yard, you can close your eyes and they're already going to have a first down. They're already on their third or fourth play. The Dolphins, we go back. How many times do we start at 1 yardage and four downs later, we're back 30 yards?
I know it's bad between penalties and loss of down. I mean, it's bad, So
it's crazy. But to answer the question about the, I know there was Raphael made a comment about Jono Smith is the safety valve for Tua underneath, and the reason why Jono Smith is wide open underneath, and why Achane is wide open underneath is because of Tyreek, because of the cushion, the too high cushion that they're playing. So those two guys don't go over the top. So that's why those guys are open. And as you said, Evan, Tua doesn't have the arm to get it down there. And McDaniel made the point today. Well, I don't want to force the ball in tight coverage or double coverage. Why? Because Tua doesn't have the rocket arm to do it. Look at Joe Burrow. Look at Bo Nix, for Christ's sakes. Look at Lamar Jackson. Look at all these other quarterbacks. Look at Baker Mayfield. When there's double coverage and tight coverage, how do they get the ball to the players? They're getting the ball downfield. Well, it's because of Tua's arm. He doesn't have the arm strength to get the ball, the velocity to get the ball down quick to the receivers. When he throws the ball, look at Aaron Rodgers, for instance, in the Jets game. Aaron Rodgers was throwing some of those little screens, the same bubble screens and screens that Tua throws. If you watch Aaron Rodgers, he was a flick of the wrist, and that ball was right there within a second. And that guy had plenty of space to get an extra 4, 5, 6, 7 yards. Where when Tua throws the ball takes 3 seconds to get there, and the guy's already got 5 people around him. He can't get even, get a couple, 2, 3 yards after that. So that's the whole problem. He's already limited that we've got to protect him and wrap him up in bubble wrap. Now the damn GM is saying, well, we don't want him running. We don't want him scrambling back there. Routine freaking plays. Your quarterback can't even do a routine play.
No, I know. No, that's the problem.
I mean, come on. He's already limited with his arm strength and all this kind of stuff. Now he can't. Now you don't want him scrambling around. You just want him to dump the ball off or throw it down on the dirt. Wow.
Hey, I know. Hey, but anyway. At least Grier, Michael Desire, at least there he did say that they do have to spend a little bit on the offensive line. So hopefully, but
they will. They have no choice.
He still had that nervous laugh. You're right, but he did say this time that they have to invest.
Oh, he was pissed though. I was proud of him when he swore about the bullshit, about the Pro Bowlers, about Sealer and the bullshit and all that. Good for him. I was, like I said this to us on the pre-show. I was more impressed with Chris Grier's answers today than I was Mike McDaniel. Chris Grier looked pissed. Mike McDaniel looked tired. There's a difference. One looked pissed. One looked like One look, but no, put it this way. One looked like his feelings were hurt and needed. His feelings were hurt by Tyreek basically embarrassing him. The other one literally is Teflon Don and will feel the pressure next year, I'm sure. But at the same time, he can go fix it. In the end, Chris Grier has an easier job than Mike McDaniel next year. Because if he does what everyone expects him to do, because they're not stupid. They know now this rebuild is a failure. So he's going to go all out and do what he has to do, because it's easy to go look at because this year, if you go watch the Chargers took basically Justin Herbert and turned him into a conservative quarterback and went to go get Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins and Joe Alt, and they became a power run game. And what happened? They won 5 more games than they did last year, and they're in the playoffs. If they want to go watch tape on how to turn around the team pretty quickly, go watch your friends, the Bills, on how they got rid of Stephon Diggs and went to a more conservative kind of play call. And Josh Allen only had to make the plays when he had to make the plays. People are talking about the MVP race, but Josh Allen had a good season, but his stats are not otherworldly. But his team played well, and so did the Chargers. A lot of the teams that are going into the playoffs play team football. And the whole thing about the cap nonsense, the Broncos played with $86 million in dead cap and made the playoffs. You can always do it if you get the right players, but you have to create the environment. I don't want to hear that a player wants to come here because they think it's fun and easy. I want them to come here because you're building a winner, not because it's fun. I want you to come here because you think
Calais Campbell came here because he wanted a win, and then, look what happened. So Calais Campbell said he would be even open coming back, though.
Oh, no. If you want to get people to come here, you get Calais Campbell back. You do that. You have no choice. You have to beef up, and you're going to have to overpay for players. So what? If you have to cut somebody, like I'm not signing back Holland. I won't give Holland. I won't franchise. I will cut him. You want to go draft somebody? Go draft somebody. You can go find someone. I'm not. I don't want him. Like I'm not giving him $20 million. Are you crazy?
He's not at this point. Like I told Steve, he'll probably go be an all-pro somewhere else. Like all of our defensive backs go somewhere else and they end up being good. But for us, he's not a good tackler. He doesn't come up and he broke. And that was his thing. He was supposed to be a playmaker, and he hasn't made as many plays. And then his tackling hasn't been as good this year.
No, I am. You want to know why I'm more optimistic? Because I came to the conclusion, Bobby, who I love, is that I'm if they would have done a half measure today, like the Titans, it wouldn't have solved the problem. So either you do nothing, you do everything. But I like the fact that he ripped into McDaniel, he ripped into Tua. I like the fact that, but the only thing that bothered me today, Bobby, was the fact that I listen to Mike McDaniel and I have to rewind. He literally talks out of both sides of his mouth, so he doesn't answer the question. It is really, really ridiculous. But the fact that they said Tua behavior was unacceptable, that kind of stuff. But in the end, I know this year is the last year. Like, they have no choice. They cannot go to a fifth year with this.
That's what we say now, but next year, who knows?
No,
Maybe.
they can't. No, my point. No, because the reason I say that is because if Tua gets injured, it literally will be the number one story in the NFL.
No, I agree with you.
If Liam Eichenberg comes back, there will be a mutiny in Miami. There's certain things I think he has to be aware of this year, because they had the number one offense last year. They can get away with it, and Tua played all the games. This year, Tua played the least amount of games. The offensive line, the running game was absolutely awful. So he has no choice but to fix the offense. So they're gonna cut Chubb, because unless Chubb is willing to take a massive haircut and go to 13-14 million a year, if he keeps him on his existing contract, it's $28 million a year. That's old Christian Wilkins money in Las Vegas. You're gonna be completely cash strapped. You won't be able to sign anybody. But in the end, for me, the reason I get rid of Holland, guys, is because I go get Malachi Starks from Georgia. Or for me, I said this on the post-game show, guys. The number one thing I want in the draft at number 13 is the biggest, most talented wide receiver I can see. Why? Because there's this guy, Tate McMillan from, I believe it's Texas. Why? Because Tua, the way he plays football, if he's going to throw those, like, for example, that 50-50 ball that Tyreek didn't get in Houston, that guy gets it. Jamar Chase gets the ball. Like, you need a big body wide receiver for Tua.
That's what we've been lacking with Waddle and Hill. They're both good receivers, but they're not that big body guy that's going to be physical, even if they're covered, So we definitely
100%. I agree. We definitely need a big body receiver there. What do you all think? Not to shift gears, but what do you all think about Tyreek? Do you think he's going to be with the team next year, or do you think they're going to find a way to trade him?
He'll be here.
Yeah, no, after today, I think that's more likely how they could just be trying to do leverage, because they can't make it sound like it's all awful, because then no one's going to give us any. But it's just too much of a hit even after June 1st, as you pointed out, Steve. So, I mean, it just depends how bad he really was in the clubhouse that we don't know, other than him leaving the game early. So, there might be some unknowns.
No one wants Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Well, no one wants to take on that.
No one's taking on the salary, and we guarantee. If they didn't guarantee him, that's the one thing the Dolphins do, and a lot of sports teams do this. You pay them for what they did for you. You're not paying for them what they're going to do for you.
Right.
So Tua got the contract because he did well last season in terms of stats. So you gave him the money. Tyreek Hill had a great stat year. You gave him the money. Waddle had a good year. You gave him the money, but you didn't project. So if you would have had Tua's fifth-year option, you wouldn't have had a problem this year. You would have so many options. Tyreek, you didn't give him the money, you can cut him tomorrow.
Yeah.
So they put themselves in this position, and I don't think they're giving away contracts this year. I guarantee you, no one on this team is getting money. It's going to be signing players, but Jalen Phillips is not getting money. Javon Holland's not getting money. Liam Eichenberg's not getting money. The only person you would re-sign who's going to get money, who's on the team right now, a little bit more money, Campbell, won't cost you a lot, is Jonnu Smith. He's the only one who's earned it, because you found a way to utilize him, and he will be a safety blanket next year.
Yeah.
And you don't have to touch Achane yet. It's too early anyways. That's it. For me, honestly, Tyreek Hill will be back, because Tyreek Hill could talk as much as he wants. He has the legal troubles from his some of the fights he's had in Miami. He has the store in Miami. He ain't shutting down that store in Aventura Mall. He's completely settled there with his family. He's not going anywhere. He does that because I'll tell you what he is. He's that kid who wants attention, and the way you get attention is by setting a fire. And he set a fire.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. He's a child. He hasn't matured. You're right. He's starving and wants attention. And you're right. That's why he trolls and that's why he says all those outrageous things.
He's done that all year. I don't know. Just the whole year he seemed off this year,
Because he
and
wasn't the focus of the offense.
yeah, I know. It just
Yeah,
Evan,
exactly.
Dudley Do Wrong, who tries to be Mr. Positive all the time. He was even saying just something all year just seemed like he wasn't even that much in. It just seems like he goes, maybe they took him away, maybe, but he said something just seemed off, and he trolled more than he's ever trolled. And like all good in the middle of the season, all of a sudden he said all good things come to an end, and all this kind of he's out there trying to get attention. So I just I don't get it, and it's annoying.
Devil, I want to ask you a question because you're positive. What do you attribute the number one issue with the Miami Dolphins? What is your number one issue leaving last season, coming into this offseason? What's the number one thing you think they need to fix? I want to hear because you've been when we're on the shows, you knock us a lot, which is fine. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Trust me, I got knocked for many years for being too positive. So I'm just curious. And by the way, Rob, have you noticed how nice I was about Jason Sanders this year?
Hey, well, he had a great year, so you couldn't pick on him.
Oh yeah, he did. He was one of the bright spots for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
But Steve,
he was very good this year. He was,
Steve, I want to ask you.
Like I said, I hope he wasn't so good that he saves Crossman's job. Like, yes,
well,
you know why
he never going to be.
We were better without Blake Ferguson. We had less issues when Blake Ferguson wasn't there. It's funny.
Yeah, what's up with Blake Ferguson, man? He didn't play the whole year.
No, he played 4 games and then he disappeared for illness, personal reasons, and they never declared what it was.
Yeah. Well, anyway, my biggest to answer your question, I'll tell you what I think the biggest need is. The biggest need is for us to change this culture on this Miami Dolphins football organization.
Oh, for sure.
Is it going to happen? I don't know. McDaniels said that in Grier, I guess he said it's a player-led team. Well, how can your players lead your team? They led us right into an 8-9 season. I can see him saying this is a player-led team if we've been to a Super Bowl. But to let the insane asylum to run the organization, the players, that's unacceptable. And Rob made a good point earlier. How is McDaniel gonna change his disposition now? After 3 years, is he gonna do it now after 3 years? I don't think so.
So when you know your job is on the line, not job. When you now realize that your quarterback wasn't there, that your wide receiver knocked you, and that you've had 3 years of this. And Ross did the same thing with Philbin. Gave him a vote of confidence and re-signed him to an extension. And you have a worse record than you did in your first 2. He has no choice but to change. If he doesn't change and doesn't find a way to develop this team to be mean, nasty, physical, angry, then he'll lose his job.
I know, but
by the way, Brian Flores. The reason why no one talks about this. The reason why Brian Flores is going to get another. Everyone said, "Well, if McDaniel leaves, he'll get a head coaching job somewhere else." Brian Flores got better as a head coach before he got let go here. Mike McDaniel, if he leaves here, is going to get worse. So Brian Flores got fired because of an issue with Ross and all that. But his record and his trajectory as a head coach went like this. Mike McDaniel is going like this. So if Mike McDaniel wants another opportunity somewhere or wants to stay the Dolphins head coach, he has to get better. He's not going to go get an easy second job if he gets fired next year. Because the only reason he gets fired next year is if he doesn't win a playoff game.
Right. He might get an OC. He might get an OC job right away, but he won't get a head coaching job. But I'm with Steve because he can try to change, but it's hard for the players to accept. The players that are on the team all saying, "Wait, well now he's all hard on us," when it's kind of a different thing. So we'll see, man. It's just, hey Steve, I sent you a private chat message.
I'm
okay.
in no rush, Steve, so you can keep going.
I got to get hitting out soon. But anyway, it's an honor to be back on here and everything. It's been fun.
Oh, don't say that, DSG. He's not guaranteed a job nowhere. If he goes from winning 11 games to winning 9 games to winning 11 games to winning 8, and the next year he wins 6 to 8, the guy is toast. He'll be a long time before he gets another head coaching job. Like they're talking in
He's saying
Jacksonville.
OC he would get.
OC, fine, but he's not going to want an OC job. By the way, he's never really been an OC.
I know he's been by title, but he never called the plays.
Never been the OC. Title doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. Well, look, guys, I'm gonna have to land this plane, but I really do appreciate Rob. Man, it's been too long for you not to be on this show, man. You need to be more. You need to come on here more often, man. You know, especially now that it's off season and there's less. You know, well, the Dolphins aren't playing any football games, so. That's one
I know,
thing. But you got to come on here more often, man. It's always great to talk with you.
It's been fun, man. I miss it. It was good again. I saw Lance in here for a little bit earlier. I hadn't seen him for a long time, and of course,
man. A lot of folks miss you, man. They ask about you all the time, brother. So let me ask you this, Rob. Where can people, since you're not on a lot of the podcast spaces anymore, where can they find you at if folks want to get in touch with you or see your
Drop the S DolphinsThirsty on X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it. So, and I don't go like, sometimes I go days where I'm like crazy every 2 minutes, then I go weeks without being on it. It just depends how the mood strikes. Right now, I've been on it just because between baseball off-season rumors to check my Red Sox and Dolphins gossip, I've been on it a lot. So, it's just, but when there's cold spells of news coming out, then I'm not even on it all that much. So, but it's all good. And like I say, I will check in on your shows every so often. And like I said, maybe when it gets closer to draft time, I'll be on again. And because I know the network always does a lot for the draft stuff. So
yes, they do. They do. They really do. Really. Anyway, I appreciate it, Rob, for you coming on tonight. And Evan, appreciate you for coming on, brother. Where can they find you at? What do you got going on lately?
Oh, for me, you'll see me. I'm on X once in a while, but for me, you find me here. Honestly, I'm always trolling the shows. I'm always driving Bobby and Alex and you and everybody else crazy. I'm going to keep up as much as my core group wants to do it. We'll be doing Finns Talk Overtime with myself and Greg on a regular basis on Thursday nights at 8 o'clock. If we need to move days for different requirements, travel, we'll do it. But we'll be there pretty consistently with Brett as well. Sometimes, that's what I love about our intro. Sometimes Brett, but he's been consistent lately. We really give you an analytical portion of the show. Sometimes I'm jumping on some hockey shows that we do sometimes with 305 Sports, but I'll be around for the draft. I'm going to be more in tune with the draft stuff this year because the Dolphins have 10 draft picks going in right now with all the compensatory. If Weaver gets a job, we'll get another third. The Dolphins could potentially have 11 to 12 draft picks.
Now, from my understanding, that's why I don't want Weaver to get it this year, because he has to be with the organization 2 years for a team to get a compensatory.
No, I think he gets it this year. If he moves, I think we get a third. Any minority head coach gets.
I think he has to be with the team for 2 years when he moves. So
someone wrote today. Maybe I'm wrong. Someone will have to confirm it.
Yeah, I was saying that, and then someone told me that you have to be with the
how
organization.
long was McDaniel the offensive coordinator in San Francisco? It was more than 2 years.
Yeah, he had been there more. Yeah,
he was there more than 2 years, I believe, for sure. Yeah.
No, but
all right, guys.
I'll be here.
I might be wrong, but someone said that on the radio today about another team. They were saying, "Oh no, you have to be able to, he has to be with someone for 2 years so that you help develop him and stuff."
Okay,
get to that spot.
All right, but 10's still good enough for me.
Yeah, me too.
And as for me, everyone in the chat, I appreciate you for joining tonight. You can catch me every Tuesday night at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. Maybe in the off season, I might pop in a little more often. So just you can catch me here on the Finns Talk Sports Network. I'm sure I'm going to be joining Bobby and the gang, Evan and all the rest, and Britt and all those folks before the draft and all that kind of stuff. And we'll probably be having panel shows with all of us on there. And so I'm looking forward to that in the off season. So anyway, guys, I appreciate you for joining tonight. Make sure you hit that like button if you haven't already. And we will see you next week. And remember, Dolphins number
Number
one,
one, baby.